I'm so confused right now. This is the most confusing thing ever.
Hola, you self-respecting, beautiful human beings.
It's been a while.
Now I know I've done one previous video on feminism.
That will just, in the future, subjugate me. So the only answer to that is to kill male babies.
And I said I wouldn't dwell on this oversaturated topic. But you know.
Brilliance should be acknowledged.
That's right, I would like to acknowledge the sheer brilliance of the modern feminist movement that has conned so many into believing it's about equality. I believe ContraPoint's video,
Hi boys,
titled Men, is a great example of the power of feminism. And this is despite her putting in a big effort to try to understand.
but when I decided I wanted to make a video for men, ContraPoints, for him, I started brushing up on my reasoning skills because I want to be so fucking rational for you. So to prepare for this video, I read Newton's Principia Mathematica, Wittgenstein's Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, and of course, the philosophical classic, The Rational Male by Rollo Caliente. So my mind is well lubricated, and I'm ready for what I have no doubt will be a penetrating, intellectual interchange. Look, I want to play by your rules, okay? So there will be no emotions in this video.
As a human being, we should pay attention to fear and not logic.
Wait, you said pay attention to fear and not logic?
Yes.
I should have paid attention to emotions and not facts?
Yes.
Why would I pay attention to emotions when
that are real in this world.
Facts are facts?
Are facts. No, emotions are real. Emotions
No, I
is
think
one
so.
removed from spirit.
I will present my arguments in strict logical form, relying only on facts, reason, evidence, and deductive proof.
As much as a feminist could, I guess.
I consider myself a feminist because I support reproductive rights and I oppose workplace misogyny, and I generally agree with a lot of the activism that happens under the heading of feminism.
I do believe her attempt should be applauded, as I really do think she was being genuine.
For this video, I decided to actually do some research for once, and the first thing I did was read the foundational text of the modern men's rights movement, which is The Myth of Male Power by Warren Farrell. Actually, I listened to the audiobook because, let's be honest, reading is hard. But as I was listening, I admit I thought it made more sense than I was expecting it to. Basically, Farrell says that second-wave feminists rightly fought against the traditional gender role that confined women to domestic servitude. But he argues that the feminist idea that men have all the power in society is actually an illusion, because the traditional gender role for men is just as oppressive. He introduces the idea of male disposability, basically the idea that society values female lives more than male lives, which are seen as expendable in the service of protecting and providing for women and children. And he points to statistics showing that men make up the majority of military casualties, workplace fatalities, murder victims, suicides, and so on. So we're supposed to conclude that even though at first it looks like men have more power than women, in fact, the queens have a certain kind of privilege in being protected and provided for by the expendable male worker bees. And I guess that kind of makes sense. I feel like I can at least empathize with the point of view. Like, haven't men been almost all of the kings, presidents, and CEOs for millennia? Didn't men make up all these rules in the first place? I don't know, boys. Still seems kind of patriarchal to me. But maybe you'll say that it's only at the top of society that men have more power than women. Maybe the average man is also oppressed by the system that feminists call patriarchy. If that's what you're saying, I think I basically agree with that.
I don't know if you're noticing a theme. Patriarchy.
Yeah, you can.
You're free to believe that assessment. You're free to believe whatever you want. But it's in her conclusion, you'll see the pure genius of feminism.
And a lot of leftists go, well, how can men be so angsty, especially white men? They're so privileged. But existential angst is often a disease of privilege. If you're actually being oppressed, you have a struggle, you have something to fight for, and therefore a purpose. But for a lot of men, their lack of purpose puts them in search of a struggle. And that, along with the loneliness and the lack of a positive identity, is what makes men vulnerable to recruitment by the manosphere groups and by the alt-right.
See? Within 30 seconds, she pushes a narrative that men are the privileged, women are the oppressed, men have no social rights to fight for, and most of all, that the feminist movement is so just that anyone who opposes it must be in the alt-right or something.
Brilliant.
Because despite what feminists do and say, it's about equality.
Now, I hope you're taking all this with a grain of salt, because these are just some little observations I've made based on a handful of anecdotes. And as rational males, it's important that we consider the facts, the stats, and the figures.
And for much of this video, we shall do that, along with examples and some of my own personal experiences living in the Toronto area. That's right, home of Big Red. I do hope you'll stay tuned, as I'll be sharing things that the gender study classes completely ignore.
Please disperse! Nothing to see here!
And for the record, I would like to emphasize that the point of this video is not to solely mock feminists.
You understand? I don't hate her. I hate what she's become. I hate the illness.
Well, maybe a little, but you know.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
What I'm trying to get across is, I don't even blame you if you identify as feminist. Since society pushes their agenda in classrooms, along with the main media, and even in commercials.
So yeah, I'm kind of working on, being more self-aware and being less full of shit.
I don't know about you, but when somebody proclaims,
I am a feminist,
my first thought is, wow, an open bigot. My second thought is, at least they're honest about it. Enough of my thoughts. Let's take a look at who holds more privilege. So when I'm confronted by a feminist, I generally like to begin with a simple question about car insurance. Let's say, hypothetically, two teenagers purchase the same modeled car, and the guy is forced to pay 3 times more for the same insurance solely based on his gender. Now, you might not think that's a big deal, but let me tell you, to this day, I'm still bitter about it. And this was a very long time ago. I mean, I'm 67 years old.
You're not 67.
Would you believe 73? How about 75?
To be fair.
To be fair.
to be fair.
Alright, to be fair, the insurance does go down when you turn 21, and even more when you turn 25. It evens out by then. But the fact remains, for years, I was working 1 week of every month for free, just to pay my car insurance, while my female counterparts were paying just a fraction of that. Now, did I, or do I, blame feminism or women for this? No, of course not. It's just a system. But my question for you is, if the shoe was on the other foot, do you think this blatant sexism would be tolerated? 'Cause I don't. Next, I would like to bring up the Jian Ghomeshi incident, as I believe it perfectly illustrates the mindset of a Canadian feminist. If you're not familiar with the Jian Ghomeshi case, then you're probably not Canadian. As this man lost his career and was completely dragged through the mud through trial by media.
Mr. Ghomeshi will be pleading not guilty. We will address these allegations fully and directly in a courtroom. It is not my practice to litigate my cases in the media. This one will be no different.
It was the biggest story for a long time, and it was non-stop.
Jian Ghomeshi.
Jian Ghomeshi.
Jian Ghomeshi. Jian Ghomeshi. Jian Ghomeshi.
Well, Jian Ghomeshi.
This double-faced chameleon Jian Ghomeshi.
So what was this horrible man's ultimate crime? He refused to spend any more time with women he had previous sexual encounters with.
How dare you!
Because, you know, some women love to sleep with celebs, no matter how big or small.
Why are you on the Grand Cruise?
To sleep with Gronk. It might be tough because there's like way hotter chicks than me, but I'm hoping I'm a little bit more freaky than them.
Did I come across sounding jealous? Okay, good.
I found, honestly, the experience of being interrogated to be intensely shameful.
Well, that tends to happen when you've all been caught being conniving liars.
Is there anything else that you haven't told us that we should know?
No. I don't even know what that would be.
Decoutaire told police Gomeshi choked and slapped her after they had dinner in Toronto in 2003, and that she only had passing contact with Gomeshi after the incident. But just before the trial, Decoutaire told police she remembered sending Gomeshi flowers after the attack. But in court, Henin charged Decoutaire forgot to tell police a lot more. In a display that drew gasps in the courtroom, Henin revealed photos of Gomeshi and Decoutaire cuddling in a park that same weekend, and a raunchy email Decoutaire sent to Gomeshi the next day, ending with this phrase. The court also saw a 6-page letter Decoutaire sent Gomeshi that ended with this sentiment: "I love your hands." She ultimately acknowledged that she left out things because it didn't fit the pattern. Despite being instructed to not communicate with other witnesses in the trial, the woman and Decoutaire shared 5,000 Facebook and text messages. Some of the snippets read out in court took aim at Gomeshi. It was a plank for the defense to suggest collusion.
If we were colluding to do something, say take his money or try and hurt him, I can understand. But all we wanted, really, if you heard what we said back and forth, really what it comes down to is we just wanted him to feel a little bit of humiliation. That's it. That's it.
I'm afraid she left the courtroom. She gave a little statement, or her lawyer read a little statement on her behalf saying, you know, she was glad she'd come forward. She found it a difficult process, but she was still glad, and she encourages other women who have been abused to do the same, to come forward. And those are all lovely messages, but sadly they have absolutely no relationship to what actually happened in court, where she was thoroughly discredited.
I don't regret doing it. It's been difficult, it's been hard, it's consumed me, but I needed to do it. I would do it again.
Of course she would, because it was
mission accomplished. We just wanted him to feel a little bit of humiliation. That's it. That's it.
So how did feminists react? After it was proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that these women are full of lies?
Protests across the country soon followed, like this one outside the CBC building in Vancouver. This event in Ottawa was organized to show solidarity with survivors of sexual violence, with signs saying, "I believe survivors," and "End violence against women." Back here in Vancouver, protesters say,
I think it's just important that we support women and show women that there's a group of people that are coming together that care.
The Jian Gomeshi verdict continues to rattle people across the country, including all the way here in BC. Hundreds of people were out today to protest Thursday's outcome. The former CBC broadcaster was acquitted of charges of sexual assault and choking. Now many are demanding changes to the court system.
And what would they like changed? How dare a man be able to provide evidence that would contradict a woman's accusations?
Sounds brave.
Kind of a big deal.
Here's my license. Gotcha.
At least our politicians are too wise to fall for this nonsense, right?
Look, the fact is that by tweeting "I believe survivors" on that day, you're issuing a statement that you believe these the complainants in this case, without having read the evidence. You've passed a judgment, and as a politician, as a legislator in this country.
But I think it's important to note that the folks like myself, and I'm not sure when Mr. Mulcair tweeted his I believe hashtag I believe survivors, I did so in the morning, and I did so purposely in the morning without having the judgment, without knowing which way the case was going to go, because it's a statement that says we need to support women.
Canadian politicians, folks. Canadian politicians. Who don't care about facts or evidence, just what gender you are.
That was bloody brilliant.
Oh, thank you for that assessment, Mr. Weasley.
Apparently this is justified, because they are all-knowing.
When only 10% actually bring their concerns forward, when only 10% even attempt to bring charges, that says something when we know that 1 in 4 women experiences a sexual assault or sexual violence. And so there's a problem there.
I don't know about you, but I have no problems with that perfect math. Seems perfectly logical.
Later.
They know 1 in 4 women experience sexual assault, despite only 10% coming forward.
More moments later.
Or is it they know it's 10% because 1 in 4 women?
A few minutes later.
When only 10% come forward.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Well, at least it's not like they're teaching little children this complex math.
Will be sexually assaulted or raped by a man.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
Disappointed! Moving on.
I believe that there's a problem, and so by saying to women, we believe that what you're saying and what you've experienced is and because you're coming forward with it, we believe that there's some merit there.
I don't know Homer Simpson. I never met Homer Simpson or had any contact with him, but I'm sorry, I can't go on.
That's okay. Your tears say more than real evidence ever could.
As women speak up, it is our responsibility to listen and, more importantly,
To believe. Are you saying that your lying is an irresistible impulse or an impulse not resisted?
I mean, I can't resist it. No matter what I do, it just takes over my life. I feel like even when I tell myself I want to choose to be honest, I cannot be honest with myself or with people.
So you say it is an irresistible impulse.
Yes.
I wonder, should we believe all men?
To call you stupid would be an insult to stupid people!
Oh, right. I'm sorry. It must have been my male privilege that allowed me to think that was acceptable.
There are serious allegations against you right now. Why not call an independent investigation of a controlled arrest?
obviously this is a situation that has been very much on my mind over the past few weeks. It's a issue that I have been deeply engaged with, not just as a leader, but all my life. I feel, I am confident that I did not act inappropriately. And more importantly, to believe. The same interactions could be experienced very differently from one person to the next. Often a man experiences an interaction as being benign or not inappropriate, and a woman, particularly in a professional context, can experience it differently.
Who knew that a feminist could be so hypocritical?
Okay, so you admit you're a hate group against feminists. You're still a hate group.
An ideology. Yes. I also hate a lot of other isms.
So you admit those?
Racism, sexism.
Bullshit. You hate sexism, but you're an MRA. Okay, no, point's taken. We win.
That's right. Y'all win, because feminists can't be sexist.
How brilliant!
Do feminists even listen to their own words?
Incredibly proud to have a partner in my wife Sophie, who is extremely committed to women and girls issues. But she took me aside a few months ago and said, okay, it's great that you're engaged and modeling to your daughter that you want her empowered and everything, but you need to take as much effort to talk to your sons, my 8-year-old boy and my 2-year-old, so a little young still, about how he treats women and how he is going to be grown up to be a feminist.
Because putting girls first is...
for equality.
And if you're one of those people that think girls need empowerment, have you been outside?
No, I don't agree with that.
Then why the fuck did you accept the position?
Because
Who the fuck hired
you!
I have a different
You
vision
should
than you.
step down! If that is what you think about being a pastor, you should step down! It is not about creating an intellectual space! It is not! Do you understand that? It's about creating a home here!
Are you new to the internet?
Please keep your comments to the Q&A section.
Keep your hate speech out of this campus! Utter madness!
Now, I'm not going to bore you with stats and facts that you've heard many times over about female privileges.
The elusive female privilege.
Oh yeah, like the elusive Kathleen Kennedy, who keeps her job despite starting a trilogy with no plan at all. Or how about Elizabeth Holmes, who received millions upon millions just for being a female CEO? We could get into the well-known fact that men make up the vast majority of the homeless, but what is rarely mentioned is that the female shelters are practically 3-star resorts compared to the men's. And if that wasn't enough, the government also gives millions upon millions to different districts to build low-income housing just for women. Now, I'm not saying I have a big problem with this, but look how they phrase it. Every Canadian deserves a safe and affordable place to call home. It takes big kahunas to make a statement like that, while the other side of your mouth is completely excluding the vast majority of the homeless. They justify this by saying that homeless women are at higher risk of being assaulted. I'm no expert, thank God, but I'm pretty sure homeless men also suffer a higher risk of being assaulted. I could go on about how the government offers startup money to women who want their own businesses.
Last year, with our neighbors in the US, we established the Canada-US Council for Advancement of Women Entrepreneurs and Business Leaders.
Or how women have been the biggest recipients of affirmative action. Of course, feminists don't like to bring up these perks and would much rather find something to complain about than to acknowledge any privileges.
The actual, policy suggestions where I suggested that, a lot of these programs aren't doing what they are intended to do. They are actually increasing tensions within the company. They are enforcing some moral standard that is inherently asymmetric. And, there are certain things that men aren't even allowed to talk about. And, my firing was a perfect example of that, where, I don't think that a woman would have been fired for what I did. And, I've talked to several people and they were like, yes, men can't talk about certain things. And then I asked them, are there any things that women can't talk about? And they're like, no, of course not.
Yeah.
I too have witnessed some gender privileges in the workplace. Now I'd like to take a moment to share the most grievous one with you. I've been a contractor my entire adult life, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to take most winters off. Because working outside in the winter sucks. I would often help a friend with small jobs during my time off. And this one year, my buddy, who was a foreman for a big industrial painting company, told me he was worried that they weren't going to make their deadline on this new sporting facility that was going to host the upcoming Invictus Games. He asked me if I'd be interested in working with them. I said sure. I was interested in seeing how industrial painters work, and most importantly, it was indoors. My first day there, I couldn't help but notice that the only girl on the crew was just sitting in the corner reading magazines. So on the second day, at lunchtime, after witnessing the same thing, I couldn't help but to ask my friend, "What's up with that?" He smirked and told me she doesn't like to work off of scaffoldings. But I was like, that's 90% of the job. He smirked again and said, yeah, but she threatened to sue for discrimination if we fired her. I was just like, wow, okay, pretty dumbfounded. The thing that shocked me the most was that nobody seemed to mind. This girl's getting paid the same as everybody else, just to sit there and read magazines. I ended up quitting after a few days. It was just a temporary thing for me anyways. I just couldn't justify to myself working for or helping a company that would tolerate such behavior. But hey, all the power to that girl. If you get away with it, why not, I guess. Government catering to feminists is nothing new, of course. Since in the 70s, education was reformatted to favor girls, as they were the ones falling behind. The differences in teaching styles, as told to me by my mother, who was in the educational system, is that for girls you teach, this is how things work. And as for boys you teach, this is why we do it this way. In short, boys tend to be more skeptical of what they're being taught and require a bigger understanding. Here's a clip that I found on the topic.
Extremely destabilizing from a social perspective. In my experience as a curriculum director for one of Canada's largest school systems, I have witnessed this trend. There is a growing body of research that serves to attribute the apparent advantage females enjoy in the public school system to their more compliant and passive behavior in the classroom. Males are more likely to exhibit skepticism about subject matter and to challenge their instruction. This behavioral difference, essential to scholarship, appears to be the source of negative discrimination in modern schools. As Dr. Duick points out, researchers attribute this female advantage to their more compliant behavior in the classroom.
This may help to explain why so many boys don't pursue post-education. Or it could be the fact that the government pumps so many drugs into boys. But what do I know?
This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
For more on female privileges that doesn't involve the government, I'll leave a link to this video.
What? I had no idea. This is the strangest thing.
I'm not saying all 50 are exceptional. You'll find many are on par with what feminists call male privilege. Things like a man may not get ripped off at an auto shop, or a man may be taken more seriously.
I mean, it's not like you can just change genders and see how the other half lives. Or can you?
You can find many videos of trans people sharing their views on this topic from both sides of the spectrum. But I found Prince of Queens to be the most fair. And dare I say, comical?
You see, trans men are socialized as women with a very severe double standard of behavior in culture where the violence that they commit as women against men is seen as socially acceptable, and that men will never hit them back even if they deserve it, just so long as they are female. So when trans men begin to really look like a cis man to most people, it would be to his benefit to learn quickly that he might get knocked the fuck out if he gets into a conflict with a dude. Here's where it gets weird.
We all have a feminist in the family, or a friend of a friend, that refuses to watch the red pill, because they much prefer a safe space than to challenge their own ideology.
I'm not sure I have any support at all for safe space.
NAU's president responding, to succeed in the world, students should develop skills to better understand differences of opinion.
We need to provide you with the opportunity for discourse and debate and dialogue and academic inquiry. And I'm not sure that that is correlated with the notion of safe space as I've seen that.
Chang's response prompting this walkout and protest from students.
Student lives are for profit.
Apparently they don't mind, their bigotry being one of the biggest factors why people are leaving the left.
Leave and heave a sigh and say goodbye. Goodbye.
Next, I'm going to share with you how I get feminists to leave me alone.
Similarly effective. Do you care to comment? I said, leave me alone!
Oh, I read.
First, as I previously mentioned, I bring up the car insurance situation, and if they believe it would be tolerated if women paid 3 times more. This will leave them quiet and stunned. Next I ask, if women are getting paid less for the same amount of work, where is this happening? Since equal pay has been in the law for like 50 years, this will leave them confused. Then I'll ask, if the gender pay gap is real, why don't all businesses just hire women? Then they could pay an entire workforce far less. This will leave them panicked. I follow that up with, if feminism is about equality, then why do they always say you should never hit a woman and not say you shouldn't hit anyone? Doesn't sound like they're coming from a place of equality, does it? The majority of the time, they will pout like a child and walk away. In rare occasions, if you're lucky, you'll get this reaction.
Get your popcorn ready.
No, I don't think it is. This whole discussion about this whole discussion about obsession and rape.
Whether you're a liberal, or a fake liberal, or a conservative, I appreciate you watching this long. And if you haven't already, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button. That's all I ask. And to you longtime subscribers, you know I know who you are. Before I go, I do hope you treat feminists kindly. Because I believe a lot of them are coming from a good-hearted place. You have to remember, many of them are just victims of a massive propaganda campaign.
It's constantly a fight against the way things have always been done, and as we see regularly, people who have power are loath to give up that power, and unfairly, men have gotten much more power than women in business, in corporate situations, in life in general. And if we are going to elevate women, some men are going to lose some power that they unjustly have, and people are always eager to fight to maintain their privileges, sometimes in more case than people are ready to fight to gain those privileges.
Brilliant! Thanks again. Salut tout le monde.
I'm going to keep saying loud and clearly that I am a feminist until...
Hear me roar.
Until it is met with a shrug.
Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you were confused just like me, make sure to leave a thumbs up on this video. I love you guys so much. Bye!